What's going on, everyone? It's Uncle Mama, and today we're going to show you how to make some Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. Now, maybe not the most traditional fare food around, but it kind of blew up when we were kids in the northwest corner of Connecticut, and it's one of our father's favorite, I guess you'd call it appetizer, even though it's a cheesesteak deep fried. What's there to hate about it? So if you remember anything from the Brian Michael Cook's blog and you read the About Me section, I talked kind of in depth about two things. Like obviously the big one, cooking saved my life, whatever. But the other one is I owe two people in my life everything that I know about cooking. And it's one, my mother, for her love to cook and bake. Without Mama K, we wouldn't be doing this today. And then the other one is Papa K, my old man. Because without his love of eating, we never even end up near things like this. And then our passion for cooking probably is much more boring. So we have to thank them before we get started into this. And then this one will just be the straight up homage to our old man. So I'll show you how to make it.
So to get started prepping the peppers, we're going to top and tail them, meaning we're going to take the top part where the stem is and the bottom part is to end up with two flat surfaces on both sides. Now don't worry if you feel like you've sliced too much of the pepper off the top. We can actually circle back around with our knife and trim as much of the usable pepper as possible while leaving as much pith behind as you can. Now the pith is that white gland that runs along the interior walls of the pepper, and to be fair, it can be eaten, but no amount of cooking it down is going to remove how bitter it is, and it's really going to take away from the overall quality of the stuffing, so we get rid of it. So we're going to make a slice through the entire length of the pepper, and then we're going to open it up so we can see what's going on inside, and then we can see where we need to make our cuts to get rid of the rest of the pith. Basically, just take it nice and slow with your knife and just try to carve out from underneath where the white meets the pepper. And if that's a little bit too much for you, you can just tear the core out and then you can scrape at the pith along the interior walls with a spoon and it'll come out very, very easy for you. And then to get the peppers ready to be sauteed off, we're going to julienne them before hitting them with a nice fine dice. You don't have to take them crazy small, but you want them to be small enough that they add just a little bit of texture inside of the stuffing, and they're not so big that they make wrapping everything later a big pain in the butt, which is why we opted to go for the smaller style of dice. You can go larger if you want the strips of pepper, but just keep in mind it is going to make it an ass ache later. Now we've done onions a ton here, so we'll give the quick rundown. We're going to top half peel, removing the top layer of the onion, the very first layer, because that one's a little bit waxy. And then we're just going to get right into, just like we did with the peppers, we're going to cut them into very similar sizes, but a nice and fine dice. Now we have to tackle an ingredient that we were recommended to use from Instagram because people hate mushrooms. We love mushrooms. So to help give them more stability as we slice them a little bit later, I'm not actually going to remove the entirety of the stem, as most of the stem is actually edible. So we're just going to trim it down a little bit to give ourselves a flat surface before we go into giving it the planks and then the dice. Now this does kind of feel like a cop-out, right? Like we're trying to get people to enjoy mushrooms and we're just hiding them inside of a cheesesteak where all they're going to really do is boost the natural umami flavors you usually get out of eating beef anyways. But hey, we got to wean them onto it somehow. We got to open that door for them somehow. And if this isn't going to do it, then y'all probably actually just hate mushrooms. And there's nothing I can do to stop that. Now to saute these bad boys up, we're actually going to go in with about half a stick of butter. And we're just going to let that melt slowly and slowly and slowly and slowly until eventually, here we go. All right, boom. And then we're going to go in with all of our diced veg and mushroom. And now we're going to saute this out, trying to cook out as much moisture as we can, make the peppers softer, the onions softer, and then try to develop maybe even a little bit of caramelized flavor within the mushroom. It's going to be hard with all the liquid coming out of things, but that's our goal. And basically, we just want to try to remove as much moisture from the inside of this thing because we are going to drop this into hot oil later. And if you do not know, let me spoil the surprise for you. Hot oil and water do not get along. And then you're just going to let it bubble away. Maybe we'll call it 5, 10, 15 minutes. You can actually cook it however long you want. We let it go for about 15 minutes. Before removing it from the pan, we don't even have to wipe it down too bad because we're going to go in immediately into that same hot pan with some of our shaved ribeye. You're going to want to do this in batches if you do not have a large enough pan, but all we're going to try to do is develop a little bit of color on one side, both sides, whatever floats your boat. You don't have to worry about cooking it all the way through because it's going to be cooked again after we cool it down and then stuff our egg roll wrappers with it. Hit it with a little bit of that S&P for good luck. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, you know, make it nice or make it twice. And then we're going to hit it with the Razzle Dazzle, a little bit of that Chemical X, a little bit more mushroom flavor. That's right, some umami seasoning. Now, the reason for this is in addition to the cremini mushrooms that you saw us dicing earlier, this is going to add another dimension of just mushroom intensity, which isn't going to give you mushroom flavor, but it's going to give you the palate effect of eating mushrooms, which is going to heighten the flavor of everything else inside of the pan. In this case, steak. We're going to mix it with peppers and stuff later, blah, 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 blah. You'll see, it'll be fine. And once you're happy with the amount of color you've picked up on your steak, mix it in with your onions, peppers, and mushrooms. And then pop it into a fridge. Give it maybe 25-30 minutes to just kind of cool down so that we can easily remove it from the bowl and into our wrappers without steaming everything up and making things fall apart and then ruining the egg rolls and having sad, depressing egg rolls. Nobody wants sad, depressing egg rolls. No one. All right, now let's talk about rolling these bad boys, huh? Throw your egg roll wrapper down, boom, kind of in a diamond shape just like that, and then we're gonna load our filling in however much or however little you want, kind of towards the closest part of the wrapper towards yourself. The reason for that is before we officially egg wash it and do all that other stuff, we're going to take that back corner, again, the one closest to us, we're going to fold it right over the top of our stuffing. Because that's what's going to help guide the rest of this rolling process, and it's what's going to help us keep everything nice and contained inside of the egg roll. We're going to fold both of the edges in, kind of like if you were, you know, rolling a burrito, before hitting it with a little bit of egg wash just around the outside edge, anywhere that we know we're going to end up having to seal. And when you're folding it, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull the egg roll a little bit towards yourself while pushing the part you're folding towards the front, I guess, which would be the rest of the way as we try to seal this bad boy off. This is going to create a nice, compact, tight filling, which is going to make it easier to fry later and is also just going to, it's just going to make everything much smoother and much more enjoyable down the road. I feel like that's a cop-out answer, but if everything's loose when you try to slice into it later, all the filling's going to fall out of it and it's going to be messy and it's not going to give you the same desired cross-section or eating experience. You're just going to have a messy egg roll, and nobody wants a weak, messy egg roll. Nobody. Now, there's a way to make much more substantial entree-sized egg rolls, and in order to do that, we need to double up, which means 2 wrappers go down, overlapping each other just a little bit, kind of as you see there. And the method and procedure is exactly the same. We're going to get a mound of our filling, apply a little bit of the cheese, whichever you use. We did some with provolone, and we did some with American. We think American's probably the way to go with this recipe, but if you really enjoy the provolone flavor, we'd suggest throwing some in there as well. Again, giving ourselves that beginner fold, that initial over the top, and then folding the edges in and then sealing them by pulling the egg roll towards ourselves and pushing away to finish the roll so that we can get that nice tight center we talked about earlier. Now, once you've finished rolling however many it is you chose to make, we're gonna go over to the stove where we have some neutral oil heating up to 350 to 375 degrees before we start frying. So this is a shallow frying method, meaning they're not going to be completely submerged in a deep fat fryer. Instead, we're just going to do 2 to 3 minutes on each side until they're nice golden brown and delicious. And then we're going to pull them out of the heat, salting immediately and placing onto a wire rack so that any excess oil can drip off so they'll remain crispy and crunchy for when we want to eat them later. Also, here's an insider tip or trick that I feel like doesn't get talked about a ton in the online cooking communities, and it's that whatever it is you fry is actually going to continue to darken and develop color even after you take it out of the oil, and that's because, I mean, the oil you're frying in is very, very hot. It's not to say that you should be worried about burning it after you've taken it out. Like, if you can tell if it's burnt before you pull it out, but if there's a nice golden brown color that you're actually looking for, whether it just be, you know, for aesthetics, plating, blah, 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 then it's just something you want to be cognizant of as you're going through the frying process. And also, if you stay on top of maintaining and regulating the temperature of your fryer oil, you're never going to have to worry about getting too dark in the oil and then getting all those nasty, disgusting, like burnt fryer bits, which are just going to impart a lot of negative flavor down the road. So when you go to strain it later, it'll be an easier cleanup process, and your oil will be much easier to set up for the next time you plan on using it, because you don't have to use it once and throw it out. You can use it several times. All right, now let's take a look at that cross section. Okay, it's a UC boy. And did we do good, y'all? I mean, come on.
Look it. And here we are. We got a beautiful platter, just like you saw earlier. It is what it is. So we got this beautiful platter of our Philly cheesesteak egg rolls cut. We showed you how to plate them up.
Let's go.
What we didn't show you how to do is how to make a peppercorn ranch dressing, but everything else is there. You can mix and match sauces. You can do just straight up, not gonna drop any brand names, but you can use a cheese spread product like they do in Philadelphia to dunk these into. Doesn't take a whiz to figure this one out. You can use the cheese product. You can use another peppercorn ranch product like this. Make your own. Go out and buy yourself some aioli. I mean, you're already so far in the hole in calories. Why pretend like we're eating healthy? This is it. We've got a party to feed, and we will see you in the next one. So if you learned anything, you enjoyed what you saw, or you ever try this, let us know. And then drop us a comment for the algorithm. And when you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell. We appreciate you. Much love. Peace.